All right, awesome. Well, thanks everybody who's joining. If you're watching this somewhere, we appreciate you giving us a few minutes. And we're excited to have a conversation. We are here today with Scott Ruprecht, founder of Giveback XP, to discuss a question that's on everybody's mind: what's working in auctions today? It's a bit of a different world as we sit here in August 2020. So excited to talk this over. Scott, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time here.
Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So before we jump into things, Scott, can you tell people just a little bit about your background and give back and some of the stuff that you guys do?
Sure. Giveback XP, we create travel experiences for fundraising events. So we work with schools and hospitals, professional athletes and coaches and their foundations and everybody in between, just helping them raise more money with experiences in their events.
That is awesome. And I think people need the help now more than ever with being, whether it's understaffed or just overstressed. So having a resource in there, I think it's something people desperately need.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, we'll get into stuff. We'll try and we're gonna make some mistakes along the way. So if you're listening and hear something bad, we apologize. We tried our best. But Scott, the first question that we have today that people have been wondering is, what are you seeing? What's working? And I think people want to know, okay, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I've never done this. I've done this 100 years, but it's a different ball game. So, what are you guys seeing at Giveback XP in terms of what's working with charities so far and just stuff, how things are going in this new climate?
Yeah. So I'd say, first of all, just kind of embrace the uncertainty a little bit, the best you can, because we've worked on numerous events since March that have moved online and virtual, and a lot of people don't know what they're doing. And I think you can take some comfort in that, and everybody's trying to figure it out as they go. As far as experiences have gone, it's been pretty good. I don't want to say surprisingly good, but it has been going very well since March. So it's kind of been centered around certain themes and areas. Wine countries worked really well. Jackson Hole, seen as wide open, safe. Bourbon experiences have performed well. Regional experiences for those donors who want to drive 4 to 6 hours. Some organizations have opened it up to us and said, we'll do anything within a 10-hour drive. So we want to consider those. And then events with flexibility. So an event for this year or next year has worked well. We've also increased the redemption from 1 to 2 years, which has mattered to donors. They've told us. So we've seen a good uptick in travel.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And one thing I'm curious, what you said at the end there, from a donor standpoint, with whether it's extending it or doing different things, does it seem like in your guys' experience that from a donor perspective, people are still donating, they're still contributing, they still have kind of the excitement, the energy for, some of these auction packages and, and stuff like that? How's that seem to be going from what your guys' experience is thus far?
So it's interesting because we're on both sides of it. We're helping the organization raise more money with the experiences, but we're also on the donor side because they're the ones taking the trips. So we talk to them. In June 1, once we were kind of thinking that the economy might open up. So we're travel selling really well, March, April, May. And then once it gets to June 1, for the next 3-4 weeks, we were flooded with calls from donors. So we were talking to them, our team was talking to them, and they're like, we just want to get out of here. We want to go places and we want to do things. Is it too soon to book our trip? Can we travel? And some of our donors, we've scheduled and rescheduled their trip and canceled, a couple times. And we're happy to do that because we know that they're anxious to go and they want to go do things. So it was interesting to put the whole thing together. The experiences were still working, but yes, and the donors still wanted to go places.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And kind of leads me to the second question, which just, what type of packages are you guys either recommending or seeing success with? I know you mentioned regional and obviously there's some geographical dependencies right now with things, but if my mom called and she said, hey, Pat, what are we going to do? What's the answer I'm going to give her?
So I would say, one, check with your board. check with your committee, because a lot of the purchases in events can come from what they're looking to do. And they might be buyers. They might say, hey, we want to go here as a couple, or this has always been on my husband's bucket list, or we're wine lovers, or we're golfers. And you can figure out a lot about an event, your audience, through your donors and your committees. There are some donors that we know based on the event who's gonna buy the trips, because they buy them every year. So what we're really doing is we're diving into those questions. So I know in my mind what I've seen work, okay, and what our company has seen work. But I start off just by listening and asking questions. There are plenty of times where an organization has picked a off the wall kind of thing, and I'm like, oh man, this isn't going to work. This is not going to work in this event. And they sold 2 or 3 of them, and I was like, I'm glad I didn't say anything. So I have to make sure that my personal bias doesn't affect this. So I really spend a lot of time listening and answering questions. But when you say that, and when we group this and we look at this, it has been a consistent areas and themes. And it has been the wine country. It has been Jackson Hole. It has been bourbon type experiences, regional experiences, 4 to 6 hours, one organization, few organizations, like I said, it opened that up to 10, and then events with flexibility. And that's what we've seen for 5 months. It has been pretty consistent on those themes.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. I mean, the one thing that resonates good about with me and some of the stuff that I've seen in talking to people is the personalization, just knowing. And I mean, I think a lot of the times you don't need to be a data scientist to, pull up some algorithm or something like that. It's the pick up a phone, talk to people, see what's working well. I mean, if from an advice standpoint, to a nonprofit specifically, what sort of advice from your experiences, have you seen to put yourself in a position where you can get the return, and, you can get people paying attention to your auction as they compete with 100,000 things going on. What advice do you have from almost, I guess, a marketing perspective to put them in a position to succeed?
So you have to be active with it. You have to work it just like it was going to be your physical event. You have to market. You have to send out the emails. You have to make the Facebook posts. You have to make the Instagram posts. I take one organization, because I watch them. I watch everyone that that we're in. Okay. And it was interesting to watch a Napa trip. So we can talk all about time frames, right? There's organizations that'll do it for 30 days. They'll do it for 2 weeks. They'll do it for a week. I mean, really it's a week, right? That's what eBay does, right? And they've mastered craft.
Yeah.
So why would you do anything that's maybe a little bit different than eBay? They do more than anyone, and that sweet spot's kind of these 3 to 5 days. So we had one organization that had a Napa trip, and it was a week. It was a week long. So they opened it up, and then for a couple of days, they didn't have any bids on it. And then after the 3rd day, it was $2,500, so they got a bid for a little bit higher than that. And then 2 days before, they got another bid. And then on the day of the event, they had 9 more bids, and it went from 2,500 to 6,000. And then I looked at the marketing behind it. What did they do during that? Well, one, on the last day, I received 2 emails. There were 16 Facebook posts. There were 5 Instagram posts. And then all the notifications from GiveSmart, because they're a GiveSmart clients. It was an NFL Hall of Famer. And you could see that they were active, and it mattered. It mattered to do that and to market and to be aggressive as they were increasing the dollars raised for their event. Not only our items, all the items.
Yeah. No, I'm happy you said that, because to me, that's been one of the things. I mean, some of you, I follow it, and from going into different customer sites, I end up on their email list and stuff, which is fun to see people who, hey, I send one email and today auction's open. Awesome. And then it's crickets until, even an hour before, something like that. But the people who, doesn't need to be well, they're just clever. And I think unique to the organization. What's going to work for A isn't going to work for B, and what's working in Hawaii is going to be different than in Delaware. But to me, the people who okay, they have consistent messaging. And if it is, I open it on Monday. On Tuesday, what's new? Because if you got my Monday email, I got to hook you again on Tuesday. But if you're new on Tuesday, I got to bring you in. And so, I mean, it sounds like that you guys have seen some similar trends in terms of that, just kind of consistent, find the sweet spots and really knowing, I mean, to the point we were talking about before, just knowing your demographic of your people and finding a way to cater the message around it.
And length, right? Length of event is important. And that sweet spot is really 3 to 5 days. And the most action is happening on the last 2 days, and especially the last day. One other quick thing that I alluded to a little bit earlier, that I would, as a hint to organizations, based on their donor base, anything outdoors, man, right? Anything outdoors right now, cabins, houseboats, lake houses, canoes, kayaks, teepees, yurts. If you know any of your donors that have that, or the ability to just offer those are going to perform really, really well at this time. And I don't think that's a trend that's going to go away anytime soon. It's my background. Before I started Giveback XP, I had a fly fishing travel company for years. So that outdoor theme is, I feel myself being pulled back into my prior life, but that is stuff that is really, really working right now. And if an organization, if they can secure that from the donor or whoever, it's going to perform in your event.
Yep. And to me, residing in Chicago, I'll always tell people from May 1st until the end of September, greatest place in the world. From October 1st to the end of April, just don't come. But, on the outdoor side, that sounds like, where, okay, being flexible with the dates and, okay, hey, moving something from a 1 to 2 year range is kind of if you're sitting somewhere and you're, okay, yeah, this is great, but I'm not in Southern California. So, Mother Nature plays a role. I mean, that's where I can see the value of extending things makes it so, okay, yeah, you're buying it, somebody's getting it in September, and then we know it might not be fulfilled till next July, but that's okay. Cause hey, you got the money now and you got a donor who's got something to look forward to.
Yeah. And they can take it in 2 Julys, right? They just have to schedule it within 2 years. They don't even have to travel within 2 years. So that flexibility, anytime that you can do, you can do that. It seems to matter. And we're talking to them and they're telling us that it matters to them. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, I know we talked a little bit about from an auction of an item performance. The other thing that obviously is different than it used to be is the delivery side of it. So whether it's you're able to do in person, you're hybrid, a little bit of both, or it's exclusive virtual, excuse me. I'm curious what things you guys have seen people do to be successful where, as a person who has pretty short attention span, capturing that interest and still having the excitement and almost the community, what sort of tips and tricks from what you guys have seen would you give people just in terms of the production side of things?
Yeah, so we've seen some really wild stuff and some interesting stuff. We've seen just the straight online work very well, right? Work very well to communicate it with your donors that this is happening, and then marketing. We've seen success with the hybrid, like the live virtual, where you actually have an auctioneer who is auctioning off, and then the platform. The ones that seem to be the best are the ones that have like a Zoom call and have the platform, whether it's Webinar Jam or there's several different ones. Livestorm, there's several different ones. People are using Facebook Live. That has some latency issues, so have seen some delays on some bids because they're not seeing it because the delay is about 20 to 30 seconds. So you can see that, but those have been fun because they're having like a room with, a family, and they're screaming every time somebody's like bidding in the chat. It's hysterical. And then they have a DJ and they're playing the music and it looks like it's a real event. And the auctioneers that we've worked with, they're really doing a good job because they're doing, they're running it just like it was a regular event. They're practicing and they're going right through it. I love the pre-recorded message. The pre-recorded message. So if your event is normally, and it's Saturday and it's 7:30, the pre-recorded heartfelt video, if you can pull that off, and we have seen some organizations do an amazing job with that. So the donors are only tuned in for, let's say 45 minutes. I can think of one particular, the one with the Napa trip, very heart connected. They give scholarships away. They interviewed the kids who got the scholarships, what that mean to them. Yep. They talked about their background and where they came from. And then the third is they talked about their dreams, what they wanted to do, where they wanted to go, and how this organization had made the impact. So it was this, you just felt it come through the screen. And they did all this because they were still thinking that they're going to have a physical event. They did all this in 2 weeks. And it was this one organization that was spectacular because you felt it.
Yeah, no, that is, I've been trying to tell people the impact story of, okay, you got to tell people what it's going towards. And at the end of the day, and we've seen some people do some things where they're putting out, like fun videos that aren't fundraising. It's like, here's, one, it wasn't a school, but it's like an after school program. And they did one of these car parades for the people, and they went to all the kids in the program and stuff. And I think showing people you're still open and, okay, hey, we can't be together, but the contribution and your gift, we're still using it today. We probably need it more than ever. And in early March, it was something that I think everybody knew, but it was just hard to say. It's like your mission hasn't changed, and neither should your fundraising. And I think that's where I love what you said, maybe about the recording and doing some things, but it has to come back to the mission. Because I think, you always have those people, but one of the things I've found is just, internet's a beautiful thing, and in some ways maybe not, but you can get your reach exponentially larger, and the fire code in a room is the fire code in a room. So you're capped by default. But there's a person who every year, but my favorite is when somebody wins something and the organization, does anybody know who, like, no one knows. That's the world's greatest problem to have. But I think it has to be donor-centric communication that is telling people what it's all about.
And wouldn't you say, like, I think through all this, donors have been really generous. I think that it's been pretty impressive. What I do see, what we do see them do is hold on a little bit to maybe that week that they gave away. Maybe they're staying at their vacation home, right, during the during COVID, or maybe a few things aren't available like they would. But as far as like a raising money and a bidding standpoint, with all things considered, I think they've done pretty well. And I think they've been pretty generous throughout this whole thing, understanding that the need, and these nonprofits need your help, and it's been good to see.
It has one of my I spend far too much time in Excel and on whiteboards than I should, but my favorite statistic that beyond at work, it's great because it's an encouraging trend, but just on a personal level, it makes you feel good about the world, is that pre-COVID, 8% of people at an event in a campaign were actively participating. So donating or bidding, they were purchasing something. And right now, when I refreshed it this week, it's at 23%. So it's actually, there's more people who are engaging and participating in stuff like that. And I think that's, the relationships you can foster today, one, they're great because everybody needs it today, but tomorrow and in the future, the people you were able to build a bond with, I feel like that connection is going to be just stronger because you came out of it together. And that's where I think all these things are adding up in a good direction, hopefully.
I agree. I agree. It's good. It's good to see during this time, the generosity.
No, awesome. So I know our main topic of the day was what's working in an auction today. I think we probably gave more information than people might have wanted, but I think good ones. And I think the main question, Scott, I wanted to ask you at the end of it is, cool, we talked about what's working in auctions today, but I think the simpler question that I really was excited to ask you is, in your mind, are auctions working today?
Yes, they are. And there aren't as many, right? Because maybe people when I say there aren't as many that we're seeing maybe this year, from the standpoint of maybe they made that decision. They had a tough decision after March 12th, you had a tough decision for a while, and you still have a tough decision now. So maybe somebody immediately just said, we're going next year. We're going next year at the same time. Or maybe we're going to maybe we're going to go to the fall. But yes, from what I can see, and I'm watching them, they're working. Some are outperforming the physical events. Some of them are, many of them are. Others are getting close, and organizations are happy, are happy with that. But everybody's trying to take a chance on something, and I think the chances a lot of times are paying off.
Yep. No, absolutely. That was going to be my last question, but you gave me one that I'm curious to just get your opinion on from the lens you guys see things is, what we're seeing very similar is, okay, hey, maybe your top line revenue is down. So, okay, the event overall isn't bringing in as much revenue, but I think it wasn't as prevalent, I think, in March, maybe early April, but now is okay, but what's your net? Because your expenditures are drastically cut. And I get where in March and in April, hey, you couldn't get out of the venue, you couldn't get out of caters, but I think especially people planning the fall, I don't have $200,000 locked down in a ballroom. I don't have sunk costs. So the net revenue and the expense ratio on these things, I've had more people be excited about it than the opposite. So I'm curious if you guys and people you're talking to, are saying similar things.
Same. The top line revenue, some of them are more, but the top line revenue a lot of times is down, but their expenses are down significantly. No dinner, no rent, no, all of that. So the event at times is more profitable.
Yep. No, that is profit over revenue is something our accountants have always tried to get me to do. And I think is a good one for a lot of people, but
that's a total account. That's a total accountant one too, because all the founders and the sales guys are always chasing top line revenue, but profitable units matters.
Yep. No, absolutely. I'm going to send this, Melissa. That was for you. I'm always thinking of you. No, I appreciate it. And Scott, this has been a lot of fun. We could probably do this for a few hours. And again, I just really appreciate you giving your time. And just in case anybody doesn't know, we'll probably put it wherever we're going to stash this recording. I don't know how it works, but Giveback XP. What's the best? If somebody's listening to this, hey, this Scott guy sounds way cooler than Patrick. What's the easiest way for somebody to get a hold of you?
You can just go to givebackxp.com. Our phone number's there. You can get to us, contact us on the website, send us an email. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help anybody think through, anything that they're doing. And if I can share experiences based on what I've seen, I'm more than happy to do that. So we're at a time where I'm probably listening better than I have, in a long time. So we're trying to all figure it out. I'm happy to help any way we can. So givebackxp.com, and you can get to me from there. ScottR@givebackxp.com is my email address.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, no, I appreciate Scott. We'll put a tentative future. I think it's going to be one of these things I'm excited to 6 months from now, look at the after. And I think especially we've always viewed it where there's two follows the school year in the fundraising game. Okay, you got your spring busy season, the fall one, and I think it's I'm excited to see what the fall season is going to bring, and hopefully we got more encouragement at that time. So thanks again for joining us, and thanks for listening. We look forward to hearing from you guys forward.
Thanks for having me.